Unemployed and Afraid acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this episode on and of the land where you, the listener, are tuning in from. We would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and extend our respect to any First Nations, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today, acknowledging that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the messy middle of being out on your own and starting over with the people who've done it. I'm your host, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into today's story of starting over. Hello there, it's me, your host, Kim Curtin, and I'm so grateful you've chosen to take the time out of your day to listen to this podcast episode. If you're here, there's a good chance you're either thinking about making a big change in your life or are right in the middle of it. And either way, I just want to congratulate you because this stuff, it isn't easy. I've taken loads of twists and turns since leaving my career in commercial media at the end of 2019, and this podcast is another one. The following conversation is all about a wonderful woman who jumped off the ladder and into her passions. And what she didn't know at the time of our recording was that she was my very first podcast guest. Before we jumped onto our call, I was doing loads of deep breathing, a lot of chamomile drinking, everything I could to push past the fear of hitting the record button. And I'm so grateful for the wonderful editing from Darcy and the team at Pro Podcast Production for cutting a lot of my ums and ahs and weird bits. I do promise I will get better. I'm telling you all this as a way to say you should never be ashamed to suck at something new. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I ended up enjoying recording it. Today's guest is the lovely Lucy Stewart. Lucy is a kids nutritionist and recipe developer working with families to create a happier, healthier future. Lucy is also the founder of Well Fed Kitchen, the incredible range of nutritionist-designed snacks for kids. A mum, a stepmum to a team of mini taste testers, a van lifer and soon-to-be farm lifer, Lucy is passionate about nurturing the next generation. Lucy, welcome so much to Unemployed and Afraid.
Thanks for having me, Kim.
It's a lot of fun to read that beautiful bio because the work you are doing is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. That was a very nice introduction.
Oh, good. So before we get into the juicy stuff, and you must pardon the pun, the food-related puns are going to be rough with this. I just feel it in my bones. Let's kick off with a little icebreaker. So tell me, how would your best friend describe you?
Busy. I find it hard to sit still, which isn't a good thing. I'm learning to do that. My little boy calls me a cooker. I'm always in the kitchen, always cooking, and I'm a good listener. They would be my top three. Yeah, I'm always, I guess, looking for ways to nurture people with food. I'm a gift of food bringer. Everywhere I go, every house I go to, I'm always bringing food. So. Oh,
brilliant. I'm definitely going to invite you over then because I love to be fed.
I can't help it.
Oh, that's so nice. I bet you throw some pretty killer dinner parties.
Smaller groups these days, but yeah, I think my cooking sort of style has changed over the years from, yes, how I would have once cooked from cookbooks, out of season, obscure ingredients, to now looking for, a more sort of seasonal, holistic food as medicine approach to meals.
Oh, beautiful. I mean, coming to your house for a dinner party just sounds like soul food.
Well, you bring the bowls. You need to bring the bowls. You bring
I can do that.
Ceramic bowls, and yeah, we can fill them with food easy.
I can do that. I sense a collab coming on. I can do that. Tell me about when you were employed. So before the bio I just read, when you were employed by somebody else.
Well, I actually studied a fashion design degree with honours at uni and wanted to get into film and costume design. But whilst I was studying, I was working a part-time job on the Channel 9 switchboard, answering phones. And when I finished uni, I got a couple of jobs on some small Aussie films, but it wasn't sort of long-term work, that I was looking for, a full-time job. And I got offered a position at the NRL footy show as their office and production manager, which I thought was awesome. And I did that for a couple of years and loved it, and then sort of fell into the next job, which was in publicity. So looking after the Channel 9 talent and then, moving across to be a publicist. So I did that for, I think, all up about 8 years. I was at Channel 9, and then again sort of fell into another job, which was moving over to Foxtel again to be a publicist. So I had a long-standing career. I was there for 7 years, but all up, sort of my time in TV totaled about 15 years in television, which I never really I fell into it, is how I describe it. It wasn't a career that I kind of went after or was really passionate about. It's just kind of the jobs that came to me that, look, don't get me wrong, I loved and had a great time and travelled and met some amazing people. But I worked my butt off and I was stressed out and burnt out. So I gave them my blood, sweat and tears. And when I met my husband and I had my stepdaughters, I think my focus kind of changed. I realized that I wasn't actually going to a job every day that I was passionate about, that was driving me and feeding me. And that's when I started to think, well, what else is there out there that I could do? I think as a result of the high pressure, high stress job, I was diagnosed with an underactive thyroid and worked with a fantastic naturopath to sort of change my diet and use herbs and nutritional supplements to manage the condition without the need for, huge pharmaceutical intervention. And I just thought, wow, this is amazing. Like, I can sort of heal my body just by changing something that I do 3 times a day already, which was breakfast, lunch and dinner. And food had always been a common thread in my life. I'd been cooking and creating recipes since I was tall enough to reach the kitchen bench, because I would make pancakes for my family on, the summer holidays, and I'd invite friends over to cook with me on the weekends, like in primary school. And I used to live across the road from my school. I'd go home at lunchtime and make everybody mini pizzas and take them back to school. And I was just always cooking and always loved food. And, I went through that stage of writing a food blog, and, I travel and come back and want to recreate the dishes that I'd tried overseas. And so, food had always been a passion for me, but I don't think I ever really saw it as a career. I don't think I knew that I could do anything with that when I left school. I was always creative, and that's kind of where I ended up, doing fashion design. But I started to think about, well, food, this is something I'm really passionate about. And I was helping a few friends of mine just with some diet changes and, writing meal plans for them, and just seeing a lot of success in how that was working out for them, and thought, okay, what do I need to make this like real? What's the qualification I need to get? What job can I go into? Can I start again at, whatever I was, in my mid-30s? And so that's kind of where my journey towards becoming a nutritionist began.
How wonderful. And that must have been a pretty confronting process to have your health be front and center and have those challenges while giving so much of yourself to the career that you were in at the time. It must have been unsettling.
Yeah, I think so. But I don't think I knew. I think it was a product of the environment. I mean, I think you ask anyone that's worked in, television or media, it was such a cutthroat world. You had to be setting the world on fire to be doing a good job. And I loved the companies that I worked for, and I loved the people that I worked with. But you had to just work your butt off. And I didn't have a family then. I was single, and it was fine to just work and work and work and work and work and work. But yeah, my health suffered as a result of it. And, when I look back on it now, I'm a big believer in, everything happens for a reason. When I think about it, well, maybe that was a catalyst for me. Maybe that was the world's way of saying, yes, something's got to change because your health is suffering. But it was perhaps a push in the direction, to the career that I have now.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that sometimes, I wonder if this is the same for you, you don't realize it's that push until you can look back on it with a little bit of time and space between it. Do you find that?
Oh, 100%. At the time, it's like, gosh, I've had a lot of pushes from the universe over the course of my journey. And yeah, I think now I can recognize it a lot more because it's happened so many times. But at the time, it's got to be retrospective until you realize, that's what's going on.
Yeah, it's so true. And so you started to look around a little bit for, that kind of food energy that was providing you so much, enjoyment and kind of opening your world up a little bit at that point. And what did the process look like to make the decision to stop what you were doing or stop focusing on what you were doing and move into another place?
It's a very unromantic story. I sat at my desk at work and Googled, how can I become a nutritionist?
I love that.
How can I become a nutritionist? I decided I had to get this qualification whilst doing my job full time. So I looked at what degrees were available and how I could make that work. I mean, the work that I was doing already in my day job was very demanding, very long hours, weekends, nights, and how on earth I was going to fit in a degree part-time around that and still have a life. And at that point, I spoke to someone from one of those, whatever it is, Seek or One Career, in the break room at Foxtel, and was like, okay, all right, I'll sign up, I'll give it a go, and again, spending whatever it was, $35,000 on a new degree that was like, I'd already had one. Was this actually going to get me a job? Is this just a passion? Was this a hobby? Like, what was I doing spending all this money? But I signed up for it. I spoke to my husband, Matt, about it at the time, and he was obviously very supportive of it, but I just kind of did it. I just did it. I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it and see what happens. And, then I fell pregnant with my son. And so I had a baby and got a degree and got married, and
wowzers,
all in the space of whatever it was. Yeah. 2 or 3 years, which was I think that was probably the hardest part, because I had a newborn and I was trying to study and do exams, and it was crazy trying to navigate that. And then I went back to Foxtel. I didn't leave. I went back after my maternity leave before I, graduated with my nutrition degree. And then that's sort of when I had to make the decision, right, you can't do all of these things now. You have to, one of them's got to go. And I knew one of them had to be my job in, in television. That was really daunting, I think, because, it's all I'd known for a long time, and obviously had a really great job, and I was earning great money, and it was a real leap of faith that I had to take. And I guess I'd sort of, I'd come to that job as well in a roundabout way. I'd come from so many different careers, and I was now moving on to another one. Like, this is sort of the fourth thing. Like, really, is this just a pattern? Is this just like the next thing? And I remember listening to Shaynna Blaze from The Block and Excelling Houses do a talk at a breakfast I was at. And she was talking about how she came to be in the career that she was in, and how she tried so many different things, and singing and cabaret and this and that. And someone had said that, she was a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I remember thinking, is that me? Am I that person? And then she went on to say that it's actually okay to come to, the career you're in and do what you love in that way. It's okay to have gone through that process. And I think that gave me sort of, I guess, the confidence knowing that, yeah, my process was the right one, and what I was doing was the right path that I was on. And I spoke to another friend who left, an executive role in television recently to move to Tasmania and to become a meditation teacher. Again, huge stressful job, and, burnt out as well. And I thought about her a lot when I was sort of going through my transition. And I remember something she said to me, which was along the lines of, you'll take a huge pay cut. You'll lose 90% of your pay, but you'll be happy. And I just thought, yeah, I actually don't care about the money. It's not about the money. I want to be working later in my life. I want to be doing something later in my life that feeds me. I want to be helping people. I want to be making a difference. I don't know if that's going to pay much money. I don't know what that's going to pay. I don't know what my work's going to look like, but I know that at the end of the day, that's what I want to be doing. I want to be working with kids. I want to be helping create their futures. And that was enough for me. And then it was like, okay, I'll make money from that. That was kind of the next challenge.
It's a brilliant way to look at it. You touch on a few they resonate with me, some of the areas you touch on there. I'm definitely a jack of all trades, but I've gotten very comfortable with that now. But the thought of other people thinking that is really quite paralyzing. I wonder if that's something that you can relate to, that fear of what others think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I just wasn't one of those people that sort of came out of uni or school and was like, I'm going to be this and I'm going to do this, and this is the career I'm going to have, and I'm going to have this job. And I never really had that direction. I knew what I loved, as I loved food. I was creative. I enjoyed working with people. It was kind of, they were skills. It wasn't a real, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I left school. And I was lucky that I had parents that were like, well, what do you love? Okay, well, you love design, you love creating. That's where fashion came in, But it was just the 2 jobs, the 3 jobs that followed after that. It was just like, oh, but is this the end game? Is this what I should be doing? Is there just going to be something else after this? And what are people going to think? And what you're leaving? Oh, that's brave. You're leaving Foxtel to become a nutritionist. Like, oh, okay, wow, that's cool. But almost like
the wow with the inflection.
Yeah. Like, wow. Oh, okay. And what is a nutrition? Like, what is that? What is, you're like. And I think it was, a lot of people would say, oh, that's brave, or that's, and I just think, brave, why are you saying brave? Are you saying brave because I've got financial security in this, or are you saying brave because I'm actually following my dreams and my passion? And I know that a lot of people that were close to me were the latter, very, very supportive. But again, it was just kind of like one of those, oh, a nutritionist. Oh, okay. Right. Sure. Oh, that's okay. That's good. It was just one of those things, I guess. And, but, when we look at nutrition and health and food and as medicine is this growing, area of interest for everyone. And I think, what I do now is a little bit more widely known than perhaps what it was, back then.
It comes from a place of your personal passion as well. That is what is going to make it sustainable, which is so exciting. Yeah. And it's so interesting to hear you mention, the people, the supportive feedback, the highly inflected supportive feedback that comes up. And I'm curious, was there any relationships that did suffer through your own change into doing something new?
No, I don't think so. Even my work colleagues, I loved the people that I worked with at Channel 9 and at Foxtel, and there are, people there that became really good friends of mine and are still really good friends of mine. And even my boss, at the time was a friend of mine and still is, and was very supportive of me leaving and doing what I was doing. There were some people perhaps in the profession that were a bit like, well, if that's what you think is the best thing, then you go for it. And I just was like, okay, thanks. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about me. It was about how my departure was affecting the business. And I was just like, well, you don't have my best interests at heart, so no problem.
Yeah. And that's a wonderful thing. And I think, for a lot of people facing that change and, particularly leaving media, but leaving any job where it's almost like a family there, letting down the people around you can be a huge barrier to actually making that jump. So it's really nice to hear that can be a comfortable transition. It may be a little sticky in some areas, but really it's just a blip on the radar into jumping into something new. I'm super curious, Lucy, for you, what was it like studying as an adult?
It was very different, but I wasn't alone. Yes, I was one of the mature age students studying my nutrition degree. And I think nutrition and naturopathy, I suppose a lot of us came to that sort of career change from our own personal experience with our health that had kind of led to that discovery. So there were a lot of people there who were there because they'd gone through a similar health, issue and decided that's, the path they wanted to go down. Finding the time to do it whilst you have a full-time job and kids and a family. And, I was breastfeeding in another room, watching lectures, like carrying a little esky of pumped milk around to go and take home to my son at the end of the day. It was crazy just with it. And again, a newborn that, was awake all the time. And I think that was probably the biggest struggle for me, that I had a newborn and I had all these other commitments that I needed to meet, and I didn't want to wish my time away with him because I had to go and study. But again, it's another thing. I look back on it and I think, well, if I hadn't had him whilst I was studying and realised the importance of maternal nutrition, childhood health, I would probably not be down the babies and kids nutrition path that I'm on now. I may have been on a completely different one. But yeah, I think you just got other stuff going on. But I wasn't alone. There were a few mature age students at my college, which, I made friends with and was really nice, and they had families too, and had just come to that realisation that they wanted to follow something they were passionate about, and that happened to be later in life. And I often looked at some of those younger students and I thought sometimes, oh, maybe I shouldn't be here because I didn't decide to do this straight out of college, and I didn't have that, real drive, and I'm going to be at a disadvantage because these guys are studying it young and I've come to it later in life. And one of the lecturers said to me, no, Lucy, like what you bring to your job now is life experience, and you're a mother and you have children and, you have world experience that a lot of these kids don't have. So don't discount the fact that you have all of those things for a few extra years of study that, you didn't, or years in practice that you didn't have. You've got to start where you are.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
That's wonderful. Once you had, gotten your degree signed off, I mean, what a huge accomplishment. I think securing a degree at any stage in life is a huge accomplishment. So you should be so proud, and I hope you celebrated it very, very well.
Well, I did, and then I left. So that's the next,
Total freedom, just jump off the edge. I love it. So, it is a huge achievement. Did you find there was a bit of a sticky transition stage in doing the study and then finding the confidence to go out in the world as a fully qualified nutritionist and scream that from the rooftops?
Yes, but I was very lucky. Again, when I moved into my role in TV, I had an incredible mentor who, she was just happened to be one of the women that I worked with that I really looked up to and molded myself and, how I handled my business on her because she was so well respected. And again, when I was studying, I found another mentor who was a naturopath who I worked with in her clinic, and she kind of took me under her wing and brought me into her clinic in that role. And I knew I had a space that I could go to and a practitioner that I could trust and bounce ideas off. But yes, it was very, very daunting to sort of be day one and say, I'm a nutritionist, come and see me, I can help you. And I knew that I wanted to get into clinic straight away to kind of get that experience up. And I did a little bit, but that's when we decided to do a trip around Australia in a van.
Wow.
And I was really hesitant to leave because I was like, right, I'm ready, I'm fresh out, I'm going to start working. This is the new me, the new job, let's go. Mm-hmm. No, we're going.
Wow. And what prompted you guys to start thinking about van life?
We kind of had the conversation, just very casually that we both wanted to do, travel around Australia in a caravan one day. And Matt had showed me, some pictures on the phone of some RVs that he'd been looking at, and I was like, yeah, they're cool. And then one weekend he said, I found one. It's down the south coast. Should we make a weekend of it and we'll go down and have a look? And I said, yeah, sure. Okay, great. And the next thing I know, I was sitting in this fifth-wheeler RV, and Otis, my son, was crawling around on the floor. He was less than 2. And Matt said, well, what do you think? Could you live in it? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, no worries. I didn't really think that this was a serious conversation about could you live in it. And 2 days later, we were taking our nest egg and buying this RV. And that was it. We were like, right, we'll go now before Otis starts school. We were both of us so burnt out by, the job change, life, stress, mortgages, kids, degrees. It was just, we'd just been on this constant roller coaster for so long, and we needed, I think, a circuit breaker, and I knew we needed it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. I'll find a way to do the work that I do in a different way. I won't be going into clinic, but I can still be a nutritionist and I can still work in that field and I can do it on the road.
Amazing. And so this time you're out on your own. You're free of the media role. You've got this degree in hand and you've got this plan laid out. Was there any tough bits about getting that from your brain out into the world? Your option for consulting on the road, your options for working in that nutrition field that you were so passionate about. How did you go about deciding which area to focus on, how to get it off the ground?
I think I just looked at what I knew I was good at first, and what I knew that I needed to be in a clinic and seeing people face to face for that area of my practice. But I was good at cooking. I could create recipes. I was a good writer. I had a background in PR. I could write. So what could I do that, was still nutrition based that allowed me to use those skill strengths? And so I did a lot of recipe development. I wrote a lot of articles on, health and nutrition and kids' health, and sort of stayed, I suppose, relevant was what I was worried about, was leaving and not being relevant, and continued my education and actually used that time whilst I was travelling to do a lot of postgraduate training in paediatric and childhood nutrition. So I studied more and, I did a lot of writing and recipe testing, which is still part of my business model today, but it was just I left the consulting. I had a few clients that I took with me, but when I came back, I was going to get into clinic.
How did it feel to see your first recipe developed and up online? Was that exciting?
Yeah, it was very cool. Actually, I did 100 recipes for lifestyle in one go.
Wow.
Just as we were leaving, which was great. And I still get a real kick out of seeing mums that send me messages just with pictures of what they, had for dinner that night, and it was my recipe, and they say that the whole family loved it. And I'm like, okay, that's me, I'm done. Like, that's all I want, is to know that what food for me has always been an extension of your love for someone. When you cook for someone, you're loving them and you're nourishing them. And that's why kids' nutrition is so important to me. But knowing that the food that I've created to love and nourish my family is being replicated in another house and, loved by kids. And I know that there's food in there that's helping their growth and development as well. And they love it, and it's been enjoyed by the whole family. It's just like, that's why I do it.
The simple things are often the best. They're our guiding principles. And I'm definitely going to make sure to put some links to your favorite recipes, most loved recipes, in the show notes as well, because I've trawled around your website and they look absolutely fantastic. So definitely have to make sure that they're in there. So at this stage, you are van lifing, which is, we could do an entire podcast on van life because I want to know everything, and getting to the spots and managing bathroom breaks and everything like that happens on the road. So how did your clinic space evolve once you were out and cruising the streets of Australia?
My clinic space turned into a little fold-out table outside our RV that I would have to work in when my son was asleep.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was. And I think, I was very conscious too that the purpose of that trip was really about us, and really about us as a family and being together. And we'd spent so many years being, not pushed apart, but separated by work and bills and stress and jobs and all sorts of things that you're off doing your own thing. And this trip was really about bringing us all together. And I was very mindful that the work that I was doing was not going to take priority over what that trip needed to be for us. So I just did it. I did it whenever I could, in 40-degree heat, I would try and go inside with the aircon and turn all the lights off and put the headphones on, and again while my son slept. But it was very, we kind of just had to take each day as it comes, as far as if we had internet, if we had power, if we had water, where we'd be camping, and of course what the day would be like if we were on the road all day or if we were stationed for a little while. So it was just really finding the work that I could do in the spaces that were, available on that journey. And I, at the beginning we said we'd go for 6 months because I wasn't sure that I would enjoy it enough to want to go for any longer. And we ended up going for 18 months because we kept extending it. We loved it so much. And it just, it was the space we needed to kind of think about what we wanted to do with our lives. I'd come to the, decision earlier that I wanted to be a nutritionist, but how was our life going to look beyond this? We knew we didn't want to go back to Sydney. We didn't want to go back to the stress, the merry-go-round, the mortgage, the work to pay bills. Just, it was too busy and it was too much, and it wasn't feeding us in a way that I think it should. So that trip really gifted us the opportunity to think about what we wanted life to look like when we left, and how, my new degree would then look as far as being in clinic and recipe developing and all the stuff I'm doing now, new ranges.
It's a very exciting journey, and it's one that is, I think, so many of us look at and think, wow, like just those amazing spaces that you get to spend time as a family in that space to be able to think about what's really important to you and what you value. That is an absolute gift and so wonderful. How did you manage the financial pressures over that time? Did that feel scary at any time?
Oh my gosh, my husband Matt and I say, that was the best life decision we ever made, but the worst financial one. Because, we'd both left well-paid jobs and had no income. We put our house deposit on this, in this RV. And so we knew that we were getting ourselves into debt when we were okay with that, because we knew we could just go back to work and that would be okay. We would pay it off. And this was, important for us and a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We did little bits of work here and there. Matt did a lot of mechanical and repair work while we were on the road in caravan parks and things like that. And I was still doing a little bit of work, remotely, which was just kind of like, we called it slush money. It was just a bit of food money, petrol money. It wasn't an income by any means. That was why we sort of ended the trip where we did. We didn't want to make money on the road. We kind of were like, oh, should we do a blog? What could we do? Could we do an Instagram thing? How do we monetize this? And both of us were like, no, not interested, not our thing. That's not what this trip is about. We'll work when we get back. And our trip got cut a little bit short because of the bushfires in 2019. But we were coming back because we needed to work. We needed to pay off the debt. And then, we decided while we were away that we didn't want to move back to Sydney, but we wanted to live up on the Sunshine Coast in the hinterland. We wanted space. I wanted to live in an area that I knew would be receptive to the work that I was doing. And so we came back and worked. And then COVID hit, and my clinic, I was working in clinic then, but had to move my practice to a virtual practice, and my husband lost his job. And it was like, that's when I was thinking, okay, well, maybe I need to go back to PR. Maybe I need to go back to that well-paid job because I need to, earn more money at the moment because we're in the red. I thought about it a lot, and Matt and I spoke about it a lot, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I just knew it would take so much of me, and I couldn't do it. I didn't want to do it. It was definitely, something that I thought about. Yeah.
It's a scary thing to think about, isn't it? That I could go back and things could be easier on paper, but instead I'm going to take this unknown road. And the unknown road in retrospect can be so fulfilling, but very, very scary to make that commitment. And was there any practices or, focuses that you had for yourself to keep that momentum, keep that focus on the bigger dream?
I think I just looked at ways to earn more money with what I was doing. I started contacting people. Do you want me to write some recipes for you? I can write some articles for you. I can do, whatever it was, magazines, whoever it was, I'll do something for free. I'll get my name out there. I put my PR hat on, I think, and I PR'd myself instead of,
Brilliant.
What I was doing for so many other people for so many years. It was like, right, well, how can I get myself work now? How can I tell everyone about what I'm doing? Which was a real challenge. I was really good at my job. I was really good at my job. When it comes to sort of, doing it for yourself, I was, I found that really hard. And so I started working with some other companies to develop recipes for a new babies and toddlers meal delivery service. Again, I started working with some different websites developing recipes and, kind of, I suppose, push myself a little bit more and really focused on, my clinic work and my virtual clinic, which continues now. So,
Self-promotion is the hardest and most awkward thing I find to do in the beginning. Once you get a little bit of practice under your belt, you're like, okay, I'm just going to put this out there. I can see how it gets easier. But I can completely resonate with the awkwardness around promoting yourself and putting yourself out. And that fear of rejection of someone saying, oh, you don't have the right experience or enough experience that we're looking for, that can be a real stop in that space. So did you ever have any experiences like that where you just sort of hit a few roadblocks?
I think I was my biggest roadblock. I was like, gosh, there's so many other people out there doing what I'm doing. They've been doing it so much longer than me, and they know so much more than I do, and blah, 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 blah. I think it was Matt that said to me, Lucy, but the people that you're working with that are coming to see you, you know more than they do. This is why you've studied. This is why you've done all the work that you have. You've just got to, you've got to believe in yourself. And I think that was the biggest hurdle, because in some way, I don't know why I thought that was being arrogant or I don't know. I think, maybe that's what it was, but I don't know everything. No, but you do. You know a lot. You know a lot more than most people. So, it was just kind of getting over that hurdle in the beginning and it being okay too, especially when you're starting out and you're seeing patients and someone might come in with something that you haven't heard of before. And it's okay to ask questions and say, you know what, I'd really like to take this away and do some further research or, asking questions or admitting that you don't have all the answers right there and then, and you're going to go away and do your homework. That's all they want to know, that you've done your due diligence, that you're not just, so whether or not that's whilst the client's in front of you or what you take away with it, just being honest and having more, confidence and self-belief in what I do. But I've never come up against anyone when I put myself out there that's gone, no,
so
you're
great.
not right for us, which is, and thank you for asking that question, because I probably wouldn't have thought it myself, to think, well, have you come across anyone that said you're not good enough or you're not the right fit? And they haven't.
I'm glad that you can, because what you are doing is wonderful. So I'm really glad you can reflect on that. And I completely agree. It's you can look at the world and go, oh, there's so many people out there doing this and that. And if the world had one doctor, it would be a pretty quiet and unhealthy place. And despite how many people are out there doing whatever field that they're doing, no one can do it quite like you. There could be a bazillion nutritionists and there's only one Lucy Stewart. And I think it's, an important thing for us all to think about when we're going out into the world. There's a million people making ceramics. There's a million people creating recipes, a million people writing books, but no one has all of the background and the focus and the experience and the way of looking at the world that you have. So I think it's a beautiful reminder that you can give to everybody, not to be stopped by the thought of there's too many of X career path out there, and just to go for it, because at the end of the day, what do you got to lose, just a whole bunch of sleep in a job that doesn't make you happy.
Exactly. Are you doing what you love? Then keep doing it.
Exactly right. Exactly. And look, we're starting to get to, I guess, the end of our chat, which makes me so sad because I could talk to you all day. But a couple of things I wanted to ask you. There's a lot of self-development that goes on through those stages. And I don't know whether or not you would have had even any time for this part of it, given how busy you were at the time. But we often look for books, podcasts, people's stories to really rely on to help us get through these tough times. Is there a book that you could recommend to someone who's starting over, something that might have helped you?
I didn't read any books, Kim. I'm
so
sorry. No, I don't. I think it was really hearing Shaynna's story that it was kind of okay, and it sort of gave me the security knowing that, I was on my path, and no matter how many different roads I'd gone down to travel back onto this one, it was okay. The satisfaction I was having at the end of every day, and even doing my assignments and seeing, the positive response from my clients, and that was it for me. It was just little bits along the way, little signs that you were doing the right thing, and having my son and knowing that I wanted to do a job, and one that I could do later on in life that allowed me to be a mother and a wife and a friend and all of those things that I could be and work around it.
I love that. I wonder if Shaynna's ever going to find out that she was.
I told her, yeah. I told her. I said, you remember that? Yeah, I've told her. I got to work with her for a number of years, and she's an amazing lady. And yeah, it really resonated with me, because not a lot of you listen to so many people at those, breakfasts, and they've done this career for 30 years and they've always known it and they're super successful, and you're like, oh, that's not me. That's not me. I was that one that did this and that and this and that, and now I'm here and I love it, So that was kind of, I would say it stuck with me, yeah.
And if you ever write a book, you know who to ask for your forward. Yeah. You got that totally ticked. So what is happening next for you? What's on the plan?
I've just launched a range of nourishing kids snacks, actually. When we were in lockdown last year, I had the idea, actually, it was a friend of mine who sort of said, you need to be doing kids' lunchboxes. We need to be able to just order these stuff, food for the kids' lunchboxes each week. I don't want to have to think about it. You need to do something like that. And I thought, okay, well, maybe. And I looked into it, and of course, COVID, couldn't find a kitchen, couldn't get the food business license, just nixed that. But I knew that I wanted to do it. So when we came up to the Sunshine Coast, I looked into it again and thought I'd just start with sort of sweet baked snacks. I've got a range now that has chickpea, chocolate chip cookies, banana date muesli bars, gummies, carrot bears. They're all made without wheat and soy and dairy, because I know a lot of kids that I work with can't tolerate them. They're made without nuts, so they're lunchbox friendly. So they're kind of a convenient snack in the fact that I've made them. They're in your freezer. You pop them in a lunchbox and they defrost in time for morning tea, which has been going really well. But I've had so much interest from outside the Sunshine Coast that the business is now sort of pivoting towards, instead of it being a ready-made range, to a make-at-home range. So parents buy the dry mix and then they add the egg or they add the banana. So that's going to launch in the new year. That's my next sort of, big project that I'm working on.
How exciting. That sounds like a huge project. And will you announce the launch of that through your website or through Instagram? How can we stay in touch about that?
Yeah, definitely Instagram and on my website. But there's a little mailing list you can join on my website too. I don't spam people. I don't have enough time to spam you, I promise. I only send through interesting things like recipes and launches and things like that. But yeah, Instagram's probably the best place to find it. But I'm hoping that'll be ready for the start of school next year. And then just my virtual practice continues, which I think a lot of businesses have pivoted in this time. For me, the positives that I've seen in moving my practice to a virtual one is I can see, I've got patients in Tasmania, I've got patients in Melbourne, in Western Australia. But I think from a mum's perspective, the idea that you don't have to bundle the kids in a car and drive across town and go to an appointment to see a nutritionist, that you can do it from home with the kids whilst they're having afternoon tea or you're breastfeeding or whatever, has actually been a real positive because it's making it more convenient for parents. And I think, once, because we've spent so much time at home with our kids, now, in lockdowns and things, the light has really been shone on what our kids eat and our kids' behaviours and things that perhaps because we haven't had that consistency to observe things over such a long period of time, parents are more, focused on changing perhaps what their family eats or their kids eat or looking at different behaviours and how food might be affecting it and things like that. So they're the kind of positives I've seen, in my business that have come out of recent times.
That's wonderful and such a great thing to offer to the world as well. And is there anything else that the listener and I can do to support you? When we're on this journey of being out on our own, it's pretty full on. It's a lot. So, if we can use our support networks as best we can, is it heading to the website, signing up for the mailing list? Is it, getting around some of your recipes and sharing them? What else can we do to support you?
Yeah. Head over to my website, join the mailing list if you can. Instagram's kind of where I do all and most of my talking. And I love seeing pictures of the food that people create, whether or not you post it and tag it or just text me or DM me or whatever. Like, I really enjoy that interaction with people because I love knowing that those little squares have reached beyond the Instagram world. So yeah,
that's brilliant. Yeah, I so get that. Instagram can be a little bit of a bit of a disappointment. You can put out there, you're like, okay, so what's happening with it now? And so hearing about that coming back to you, that's really nice. So look, Lucy, it has been such a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much for your time. It's really been an honour to hear the ins and outs of your story as well. And, what has been a really incredible jump into the unknown, definitely filled with, lots of moments that sound kind of scary that you've worked through pushing through, and it's really inspirational. So it's just awesome to share. I'm going to make sure I've got the link to your website, your Instagram, all the details in the show notes so that the listener can head there and grab that for you. So I only have one more question for you, which it'd be just rude not to ask. What's for dinner?
Tonight, I am doing one of the most popular recipes on my website, actually. It's baked lemon and herb chicken.
Love it.
Definitely link that in your show notes because that's the one I get messaged about all the time. Yeah.
Brilliant. and we're recording this on a Thursday. So that sounds like the perfect Thursday night meal. Get the family around leading into the weekend. Hopefully there's leftovers for wraps or something tomorrow.
Always. Yeah. That's a tip. Always make extra so you've got leftovers for lunch.
The leftovers are my favourite. It's all the flavour, half the effort.
Yeah. Cook once, eat twice.
I love it. Lucy, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
No, thanks for having me, Kim. It's been really nice talking to you.
Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the stories of starting over with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you liked the episode and are keen to hear more, please hit the follow button and leave a review. And let's keep the conversation going on Instagram @unemployedandafraid, where there's more goodies and links to today's show notes. See you there.